And
Sorry, I forgot to put the bonnet on.
that's okay. And he heals him, and the man comes back. And verse 19, the end of the pericope. And he said to him, "Arise, go your way. Your faith has made you well." So, for what that's worth, that faith has made you well, I think occurs 4 times in Luke, and it's strategic also, but I'm not yet prepared to say exactly how. It's an inclusio anyway.
Well, can in his inclusio,
Mhm.
I just wanted to see the main point that he has is in 13:31 through 35. And so I think this makes perfect sense with what we're saying, that prophets perish in Jerusalem and Jerusalem kills prophets.
Mhm.
And so that makes sense with Jesus's face is towards there. He knows why he's going there.
Uh-huh.
And so that's the center of these 3 booklets.
I see. Uh-huh.
And I thought that was very interesting.
Is that that's what Talbert is saying?
Yeah, and on 118 he has the JJ, the center of the inclusio. Interesting, the I and I prime are exclusion or inclusion into the banquet.
I see. Huh.
Did you get that from me, John?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Hmm. Wow. Well,
Yeah, I thought from reading through his work on John that it would be helpful here in Luke.
I've already seen a few things just that we didn't recognize before, but I thought this was very appropriate for what we're trying to do here.
yeah.
I mean, it's those 3 booklets. I think he just ends it on 1944, where we ended on 27.
Mhm.
Yeah, the fact that the travel narrative includes time in Jerusalem, yeah, it's, as I've pointed out, liberals have all sorts of problems with the travel narrative, because they say, well, how can we have all these chapters devoted to traveling between Galilee and Jerusalem? There's no way that all of these events could take place in a trip. Wiesler, of course, noted that it was 3 trips. But then as I kept working with it, I noticed that it wasn't entirely the movement. The travel included the time away from Galilee, that is, down in Jerusalem.
Uh-huh.
And so it's, let's go to Jerusalem, let's be in Jerusalem. And he does that 3 times.
Yeah.
It's not just while he's on the road.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, it can be taken up to verse 44 without any problem, as far as I can see.
Well, verse 28 has, when he had said this, he went on ahead going up to Jerusalem. So I think that's why we
Right.
ended ours.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Steve and John both, thanks for the encouragement on Talbert. I think he's thinking very similarly with what we're seeing, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more that he will help us understand.
Yeah, there's just FYI, there's a lot of things that he's going to help us misunderstand.
Yeah, he in John, he basically has, I haven't read through his view of or his portion on First John, but he holds to the Johannine community view. And the Johannine community view starts with First John and then attempts to read the Gospel of John through that template of its encouragement to their fellow members of the community. It's not an evangelistic book, and it's basically retrenchment as a result of all of the Jewish opposition that is developing in the 90s. And so it becomes very wacky at times. You say, this is utter nonsense you're trying to sell here.
Yeah.
But he's paying attention to the features of the text. He just doesn't know what they mean.
Now, I thought I read on maybe a book cover or somewhere on online that he wrote the Hermeneia, or at least part of the Hermeneia commentary on Luke. I haven't gotten into that yet. So he's a well-known scholar.
Yeah, he is. There are some important things that he said with regard to synoptic problem, and that's so I've used him on some other types of things, but I had not started seeing how he interprets passages till now.
He did say that the only the fourth soil are believers that hear and heed. You have to hear and heed.
Yeah, that's a widely held view.
Yep.
In fact, we're the lonely ones out here.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I had a student who had a bumper sticker on his car that I thought was quite appropriate. Truth is narrow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is for sure. Okay, so we're going to start in this section, the first journey, I think, today. That's we ended on the Galilean ministry.
Let's see, I have something, I have to get this upstairs.
Steve, I got here late, but I noticed that for the first 10 minutes of the meeting, you wore glasses.
When I have to read these, when I read these books,
Oh, I see. Mhm.
I need to wear glasses. They're not prescription.
I see, just
They're
reading.
just,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, they're, I actually got them from the doctor, but they're just, the, like 2X, but I can't see anymore.
Yeah. Well, you're getting into the select club of those of us who are older.
Yeah, I think I'm not getting there. I'm there.
Let's see.
What do you think, Lon? Um, when he has this inclusio along here, we should probably be at least looking to see how what we say fits those, don't you think?
I would think so. I think it's gonna, will,
It's amazing. I put both of these together and, see here, how to inherit eternal life. That's the lawyer. And then C prime is the rich ruler.
okay, now, are you looking at the outline or? Where-
117 and 118.
Okay, I see, we got on 118, it says in A, in B, in A prime. And
117, yeah, you have C there, how to inherit eternal life, 1025 forward. So he's kind of sectioned out these, 1025 to the whatever the end of 10 is. Then the prayers 11:1 forward to 11:1 to 13. And then if you look on the other side, you have the C prime 18:18 forward.
okay, I have the paperback, and it's possible that my pagination is not the same as yours. Did you buy this?
Oh. This is on introduction. If you go to the guidance on the way,
Is that at the beginning of the book?
no, it's in the middle.
Okay,
Let's see, if you find where it says Luke 9:7 to 50 at the top,
okay, 9:7 to 50, got that. Mhm.
okay, then go to the end of that, and then you'll have
Oh, I
guidance
see
on the
guidance
way.
on the way. I see 9:51 to 10 to
And then
1944.
go to the introduction, the first page inside that.
Uh-huh,
And then you have your inclusio at the bottom.
I see.
Mine are 2 pages, maybe yours is on 1.
Yeah, okay, that's on my page 111, the introduction with the
Okay.
large inclusio. Now, where does he end the inclusio? Let's see, 13. 21. Okay, well, here's the challenge, Steve. He's taking this as at the bottom, page 111, onto page 112. He's thinking, he's putting this together as a chiasm.
Right.
Okay, so
Yeah, I said inclusio.
he's thinking of it as a unit. So well, he may be right, but if so, we're wrong.
Really? You can't have a chiasm in 3 booklets
Well,
if they're all the same, the mission section?
Yes, you can call it the mission section. So these would be subdivisions. These wouldn't be the major units of thought then.
Right.
The inclusio, the chiasm trumps our booklets.
Oh, really?
Well, how is Luke arranging his material?
Well, I just thought that the
book-
chiasm was a masterful way of putting the 3 booklets together. And in the middle of it, he's going to perish in Jerusalem. That's all that it's saying. I'm not saying that you have to divide them in those areas.
Oh,
But-
when you say masterful, were you quoting him? No,
No, I was quoting Luke.
okay. I'm just
Or, the
thinking,
Holy Spirit, I guess I should say.
you know, the booklets can be a way of arrangement of the material in a chiasm. But what he's trying to say is this is how Luke was thinking. He,
I attended in 2002 the ETS conference in Toronto.
mhm,
I attended a workshop that was done by a man that was working on a PhD in one of the European seminaries. And his dissertation was on chiasm.
mhm.
And he set forth the probabilities of creating chiasm accidentally when you have 3 members, when you have 4 members, 5, 6, and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
And so when you have minor inversions, and that, you know, shows up pretty easily from a statistical standpoint, and he pointed out, well, these places, it's possible that some of them are unintentional that happened. But he said if you end up with one that's very involved, very long, has lots of members, that the likelihood of it being accidental is very low.
mhm,
But the likelihood that readers would pick up on more than an inclusio is probably low. So what he argued was that the use of chiasm, when it became a more involved, lengthier one, was an authorial tool in order for the author to be sure that he had covered all of his points.
I see.
And so
Oh, go ahead.
one has to ask the question, okay, let's assume that what Talbert has noticed here is actually structurally what Luke did. If what he's seeking to do is have a complete one-for-one statement of what's going on, but he hasn't made it perfectly obvious to the casual reader, then it may not be the driving force.
I see. Mhm.
So I thought that that was a useful perspective on chiasm. So when I see the big, long, intricate ones, I ask, how likely is it that a reader is going to pick up on it? Not high. But yet it looks, when those occur, that they were intentional. I think that it does. I mean, Ross uncovered a major one in Genesis 11, the Babel passage.
Right.
And it shows Moses as he's writing, okay, yes, I am covering all the points. This is complete.
Well, that's I'd be glad to think about that. I mean, if the author is putting them in a specific order, and you can see it, he does he not intend his readers to do their homework and find the chiasm to show what the unit is? It defines a unit, if nothing
Sure.
else. It defines a unit.
Well, the issue here that I have as part of my background thinking on all this is about 5% of the Roman Empire was literate.
I see, yeah,
We have Revelation 1:3 that I think is a significant passage. Blessed is the one who reads and those who hear the words of this prophecy.
mhm,
I think most people heard scripture rather than saw it.
uh-huh,
So it can be a memorization tool for the person to, as he's teaching it.
Well, it can serve that purpose, but the we have the luxury of looking at it and observing patterns. The patterns that the person in the pew is going to be acquainted with are those that are either presented to the ear or that the expositor highlights.
That makes sense. Okay, so
well, anyway, a short answer to your long question, Steve. John, while you were gone, Steve asked the question, do we want to put these chiasms into do I want to incorporate them into the outline? Maybe the thing to do in light of that discussion is to put them in as a note, right? Rather than trying to incorporate them into the outline. In other words, we can mention this, but what we're trying to do with the outline is figure out Luke's major teaching thrusts, if I'm correct there.
I would also warn that we want to test it.
I see.
right.
Because
See if it's even correct.
he had a chiasm in his book on John that went from 1:1 through 18. But what he did was he carried the term logos through it. So he became oblivious to the fact that logos was set as an inclusio up to 1:14, not through 1:18. And his chiasm shows signs of being somewhat synthetic.
Right.
So I would caution that it's something we need to test.
I see.
I would be very comfortable saying that at the level of inclusios, it can set, an inclusio can set off a large section, but I can see that as a real possibility here, but in turn, I was reading this morning in Keener, and he noted something that I found very interesting in the Gospel of John. Immediately when John the Baptist is introduced, he's introduced as a witness, as one who testifies that all might believe through him. Then when we look at the epilogue to John, it also is saying that we know that John's testimony is true, that is John the Apostle. And so I hadn't thought of that inclusio there between the prologue and the epilogue, but I would say that's there.
Yeah. You know, the other thing he does really well is he compares each one of the incident in each one of the Gospels every time.
Oh, really?
So he goes through and just says, this isn't stated in these two Gospels, and this is probably why, which is a good thing. I mean,
Yeah, very
You do
helpful.
that all the time, John. I'm not, I don't have the Gospels down that well yet that I can do that.
Well, this is what Steve Mahoney and I are working on, and we'll, when we get a little further along on the process, make some of that available to you, although we'll have to set up your own memory devices for it. My house in Aurora is being used as the model for thinking through, because right as we were making the first trip with a trailer out to Tennessee, Steve joined me. Oh, he had seen the pictures of the house as it was up for sale, but then he was able to shoot pictures of the house and so forth. So that's basically the mnemonic that we're using to get started on being able to put all the pericopes, is that I can say, well, this passage is here in Matthew, at this point in Mark, in this place in Luke, and in this place in John.
Wow.
Well, Steve, that just means that you and I have a long way to go.
I need to make sure I have a very small house. Okay, so this green here, Lon, is what you and I had done with when John was gone at some time.
I
So
see.
we can just start working through this here.
Okay. Well, I will say, on the basis of my my observation, it needs to be tested. But my observation being that each of these booklet sections begin with a pericope on salvation. I prominently with a salvation prominent in each of those three pericopes, that it helps confirm the path we're on, going by the geographical mention of Jerusalem.
Where should we put that as a note here, Lon?
I
Have
put
you-
it, okay, here's where I put it. Here's my logic. I put it at the beginning of, let's see here. Not here, not this one, but the next one. And here's why. When you put it at the first one, you're jumping ahead.
Right.
So you don't mention it until, that's where I put it, I think, Steve. Hold on here just a second, I can look it up. The first one is in third. I put it as a note under the first pericope in 13:22. Note that the first story of the book of this booklet concludes with reference to salvation, just as in the previous booklet. Okay, and then I do the same. I put a note very much similar to
Start,
that.
you did it at 13:22.
At 13:22, because then I'm referring back. I don't expect my reader to jump ahead in 9:51 and check out something that he hasn't encountered yet. So that's my logic.
Okay, and what did you say here?
Well, here's where I put it. I put it under your subpoint there under 13:22 to 35. I didn't put it there. Well,
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe it goes better where you've got it, Steve.
I'm gonna put it here, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's a validation for
For
a
the
supporting validation.
Mhm.
13:22 being the start of a section.
Right. And then also we're going to find out it does the same in the next booklet. It once again ties the geographical heading to Jerusalem. It does the same thing once we get into the next booklet.
Okay,
So-
pericope is a smaller unit than we're talking about. This is
Right, I understand that. Well, that's why I put it at 13:22 rather than where you've got it.
no, no, I'm looking at Steve's wording, each pericope.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, pericope, Steve, is just a,
So each booklet,
yeah, each booklet, to use our terminology.
And it'd be each booklet in the travel narrative.
Mhm.
Oh, thank you, John.
And you might put in parentheses 951 through,
Yeah, and then to
Are we
13.
going with 1922 right now?
Yeah, now the first one is not someone being saved, but it's, so I put with prominent mention of salvation. The first one is or is this the one? Which is the one where they go through Samaria and
that's the first.
that's the first, yeah.
Interestingly, in John's gospel, that was the trip when Jesus was called a Samaritan.
Uh-huh. I see.
So they may have seen which gate he came into the city through.
Oh, that's interesting.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Okay, and I have a question here. We've said in Luke, salvation isn't saved from hell, or did we say it can be sometimes?
I studied that a couple of weeks ago, and I can't remember what conclusion I came to. I will say this, though. Here's another observation. In the cases where Luke says, "Go, your faith has saved you," in all 3 or 4 cases, I can't remember. It's always following a request for mercy. The blind men say, "Lord, have mercy on us." And then blind Bartimaeus says, "Son of David, have mercy on me," or on us, I don't remember. And then that's where then Jesus performs the healing. Oh, it's the woman at it's the Syrophoenician woman, if I remember correctly. I'm not sure. Yeah, she's one of the 2 daughters. And she says, "Have mercy on me," I think. I don't remember. But at any rate.
Can I put here mentioning deliverance from request for mercy?
Yeah, and now you put those 3 together. You've got the deliverance requested by mercy, through mercy. And then you've got Jesus answering, "Your faith has saved you." So what do you got? You got 3 elements. You've got mercy. Actually, anybody who is, quote, saved in this fashion is saved by mercy through faith. In other words, these are illustrations of the Pauline perspective, except that it's in all 3 cases, or 4, I can't remember. It's going to be chesed probably when they say it, not chen. But go ahead, John.
We'd be able to say each one of them is manifestation of whoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be delivered.
Uh-huh. That's true. And he also he at the same time ties this in with the idea that Jesus wants to make sure that they understand that it's through faith in him that they are saved.
What did you say the 3 parts were? I was typing when you said it.
Okay, let me see. Let me look them up here. Hold on.
Is it mercy, faith, and deliverance?
Well, you
said there's 3 components.
Yeah, the 3 components are: there's always a salvation, there's always sozo, and Jesus always says, "Your faith has saved you." So there's also faith. You got sozo, you've got faith, and then it's always in response to a request for mercy. So let me look them up here. That's, I'm sorry. Okay, let me go back to. Okay, the first one is in 7 50. I could be wrong about this. It's a sinner, a woman. I could be mistaken there. It's in 750. He says, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. You may also have the you may also have the peace thing also. Hold on just a second. The next one is oops. I think he says your faith has made you well. Hold on. We've got one in 1842. This is blind Bartimaeus, and verse 38, he cried out saying, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. And 42, he says, receive your sight, your faith has made you well. Okay, now let's go for another one. Yeah, it's the lepers in 1719. Jesus, Master, have mercy on us, in verse 13. And then verse 19, he said to him, arise, go your way. Your faith has made you well, which is interesting. And
Well, Paul
okay.
Steve, Paul is citing the Old Testament in those statements.
Right.
And it's talking about a temporal deliverance.
Well,
Right.
these are temporal. I mean, that they're all temporal, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I was trying to match it up. Is something wrong here with?
Well, rather than Paul, it's ultimately coming from, what's the exact reference?
Yeah.
With Paul's account of the Old Testament?
That would be Romans 10, what?
Yeah.
9.
Yeah, I think it's
9,
Joel.
13, I think. Now, here's another, the other one is 850. Do not believe. Oh no, don't be afraid. Only believe. Let's see here. Only believe and she will be made well. That's 9. Excuse me, 850. And the woman, the other woman. Okay, we don't have mercy involved here. But you do have calling on the name of the Lord.
Yeah, it's Joel 2:32. I knew it was Joel 2, but I couldn't remember the verse reference.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and I would say delivered, just to.
Yeah. Yeah, John, you're absolutely right. I do think it's interesting that faith is, he mentions this in, if not all, yeah, I think all of these instances. I think there are 4 of them. And Yeah, now I have to say, Steve, that I'm not sure these all belong in the same uh, uh, note, because we don't have in the case of the first of the three travel booklets, there's no mention of anybody calling for mercy and being saved. In the first case, it's the two brothers wanting to call down fire from heaven, and Jesus says, "I've come to save men's lives." So it's not like one of these stories of a healing occurs in each of the three of them.
Okay, so the last two are in agreement?
Let's double check that. Yeah, I reported that as kind of a stray observation. It probably your point here goes when you say you could start a second booklet, the three components of salvation, faith, and request for mercy. Okay, but you're right.
The woman in Luke 2 has no words.
Yeah. Hold
She
on.
doesn't make a request for mercy.
Yeah, she doesn't make a request for mercy. So it's okay. Now I'm having to back off on some of this. It's not that hold on here. Let me. Yeah, you know what? This point probably awaits further observation and development on my part.
Yeah, I would say what we do have that is safe for us to say is that each one of these starts with a salvation or deliverance
emphasis.
theme, which is
Yeah.
Reinforcing the idea that that's a prominent feature behind the scenes within this section.
Right.
I think we're safe in saying that.
Yep. Yeah.
So the first one didn't even request mercy?
No words are recorded from the woman's mouth.
Okay.
Well, the first one is the brothers wanting to call down fire from heaven, and Jesus ends the pericope by saying, "I didn't. You don't know what spirit you're of. I didn't come to bring judgment but mercy, or I didn't come to destroy men's lives, but to save men's lives." I think you could go a little farther, Steve, than you could say each booklet and travel narrative begins with a deliverance pericope, or a pericope with a deliverance emphasis. Yeah, put before the word deliverance, right there, with a pericope having a deliverance emphasis. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, we can work that other thing out sometime once I've spent the proper time thinking about it. I wrote this down someplace, but I couldn't just jump to it and find it.
Okay. So let's go back up to where we started here. Whoops.
It's green. It's your green font.
Yeah, I went too far.
There you go.
Jesus asserted that his first advent emphasizes salvation, not judgment. That wording won't have someone making the facile objection that, well, Jesus does slam people pretty hard. Yes, that's the case, but the judgment of people reaping what they sowed is not going to happen by judicial decree by him. Everything is focused upon giving people the opportunity for deliverance.
Mhm.
With
Okay.
that wording, there would want to be a comma after salvation.
Given what you've included there, Steve, you've put in inclusio to the destruction of men's lives, 13, 18 to 21, right?
Right.
Okay, given that's the case, this might qualify then for a chiastic emphasis, or we can't say yet chiastic, but we can say if you have the theme brought up at the end as well at the beginning, then I would say 951 to 56 deserves a separate point. Does that make sense to you? In other words, it will begin and end with this thematic element that forms the bookends. So 51 to 56 would not be a separate point under hear and heed. It would be a separate point all its own. John, what do you think of that? In other words, it stands out as a bookend.
Okay, and what passage is its bookend?
Well, Steve has here, notice under that point in bold, he says, inclusio to the destruction of men's lives, see 13, 18 to 21, which is at the end of the section. Now let's look and we'll test. Steve, you got that from Talbert. We'll have to.
No, we had that in before Talbert. I didn't put that from Talbert.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, let's test our own chiasm then. Okay, what is it? 13, 21.
Well, that's a mustard seed.
Okay, 18 to 21 says, what is it? It's supposed to be like a mustard seed, which means.
That's the wrong.
Well, it's mustard seed and leaven. If you put these two together, there's the judgment. Right? We have in both these parables a suggestion. If we're taking it like we did Matthew's, these are both suggesting the harvest. When the birds will be chased away and the loaf is put into the oven, right?
Let's see what we put up in 13.
Well, I'm talking about Matthew 13. You know, remember in Matthew 13, that's how we took these parables, if I'm remembering correctly. The mustard seed is, it grows and the birds of the air nested in its branches, they need to be chased off.
Right.
There will be a judgment. And then the leaven is going to be spread through the loaf. And it's at that point, then it's put into the fire. And that's how we took it in Matthew, if I recall.
Okay, although this is not parallel to Matthew 13. It's Luke 8 that's parallel. This is a distinct event.
Right. I agree. I understand that. But would his readers have understood? Let's see. John, you said that this is, okay. He's repeating something that he had earlier said.
Yeah, the parables, the Luke's account of the parables, including the parable of the sower, and the others that he includes are in Luke 8.
Luke 8, right.
This is now in the travel narrative. He's reiterating what he's taught before, but it is not, what I was saying is it is not the same event as Matthew 13.
I agree totally. But he's alluding to something that he has apparently taught before. And we can't take it directly out of Luke 8, but the implication is the same as that. I'm just saying, isn't the implication the same as in Matthew 13?
But now let's back up to verse 1, chapter 13. He's looking at the whole issue that, I mean, this whole section is not just there where he gets into an issue of
Judgment.
So, I mean, that's why I was saying this is a distinct context, and we have a larger section devoted to that.
Right. If we, would we be fair in saying then that this is the inclusio to 13:1 through 21? We have, he begins with emphasizing salvation, not judgment, but he's going to end with emphasizing destruction, not salvation. Are we fair in making this an inclusio if we put in the whole chapter?
Well, it's an antithetic one if it is an inclusio.
It is, yes, it's antithetical.
I think I would hold off on that.
Okay.
I mean, it may develop out of the outline, but there are enough things going on that I'm concerned that we might end up being a little synthetic.
We might be following Talbert a little too closely then.
All right, I'm taking this out.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, John. We may end up with that.
That's why it's in green, John.
Yeah.
Maybe it would be important for us not to just say that he explained this, but he countered the sons of Zebedee by saying this.
I'm not sure if this is one of the cases, but would the word rebuked be better? I think they're rebuked, right? I mean, they're missing the point.
Right.
I know that in Talbot, rebuked is one of the big words in this section.
Mhm.
I'm going to say this. I don't know. We'll have. Do I need to put inner circle disciples or just disciples or two of his disciples?
I would say two, because
Two close disciples?
yeah. We don't have him rebuking Peter, who later will be, or is already part of his, what we're
Yeah.
calling the circle, I think.
And is there a better word than misunderstanding? What did we use before? Remember?
Well, can we read the whole? I think we may have. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Mistaking, maybe? I don't know. Okay, what are we gonna do, and we'll find out, Lon? Through more of it, maybe?
I think we might clarify this sentence a little bit by saying misunderstanding the emphasis of his first misunderstanding. We're not, as a reader, I'm not sure whether the misunderstanding is that his first advent emphasizes salvation. Is that their misunderstanding? There we go. Now, misunderstanding the emphasis of his first advent.
Well, as judgment, when it is actually.
Yeah, as judgment. Good.
I tremble every time I do because I'm gonna put the E in there.
You can change that, Steve, in your the next time you spell it wrongly.
Yeah,
Spell it wrongly on purpose, and you'll have an option to have it automatically change it to JUD.
okay, let me do that, because for whatever reason. Okay,
Okay, now bring your cursor elsewhere and click.
elsewhere.
Oh, yeah, let's see. I'm sorry. Double click on judgment. Now, let's see here. No,
I need to bring it from above.
oh yeah, see where it says rewrite suggestion? And double click on it again. See where it says rewrite
Oh, yeah.
suggestions? Yeah, you can take the letter E out, and let's see if it does it. Okay, it doesn't work, does it? Okay. All right. Well, my suggestion didn't work there.
Okay. Is there something from above or not?
Yeah, you could try review. And oh yeah, let's see here.
That's right. I just need to learn to do it right.
Yeah.
I don't need automation to do everything for me.
After the word judgment, you want to put a comma then. Okay, good.
Should I put temporal and eternal on the salvation there?
You could just put in deliverance. I think
I would leave it generic and say deliverance. I'm having to check here and there since we've got people working in the house.
No worries.
okay, now here, what follows is I think, as opposed to the wrong perspective on ministry following Jesus, which would be nonviolent, that would be the wrong perspective. What follows, I think, is the proper service of Christ. Is that fair?
Yeah, he's seeking to prevent it from becoming like Islam.
Uh, yeah. So, and that is obviously it was a temptation for these inner disciples. So the contrast, I think, is what he is laying out at this point, but maybe I'm overstating it. If so, then these three, 51 to 62, 50,
We have 51 to 56.
yeah, so this would be 51 to 62. Hold on, let me see. Well,
I'll be right back.
actually, it looks like maybe 51 to 62 is the unit. Or let me just propose that 51 to 62 is the unit. You have the two sides of the coin, which is it's losing one's life for losing one's, I don't know, it's a stretch. I was going to say, rather than causing other people to die, you are to deny yourself. Rather than denying life to others, you deny life to yourself. I don't know, that may be too.
Denying oneself is the negative statement, but what we have here, I think, is positive statement of following requires making him the number one priority. There's no room for half-hearted following. I mean,
That's well put, John.
you know, the term here that's being used is follow.
Right.
Now, we are not specifically told what became of the person that spoke up in verse 57.
Right. Uh-huh.
Jesus makes a response to him, and we're not told what his response is.
Mhm.
The second person has to be rebuked, and the third one has to be rebuked.
Right. Uh-huh.
It doesn't ultimately say that they didn't get things straightened out. That possibility exists.
Yeah.
But it's saying priority on him is essential. There's no half-hearted following.
Right. How do you see the
Do you see, John, the protection, priority, perseverance there is the, I know we put those down, Lon and I had put those down before as these are the things that they needed to rely on the Lord for or make that a priority in order to persevere.
Yeah, I would say that those are fair statements of it.
Now, in 9:21 through 36, he had already said that, that you have to deny yourself. So it is a reiteration, right?
Yeah, but it's being stated from a different standpoint. It's an equivalent.
okay, now what exact excuse me. How do these two units fit together? We're saying that it has, the second one has to do with his messianic identity. Obviously, we have a new unit starting in 10:1 to, what are we saying, to 16. At least that's where we got it now. So how does this fit with, how does 57 to 62 fit? It looks like we've just suddenly jumped the rails.
Well, both of these, Jesus is moving. He sent messengers ahead, they prepare, so he arrives, and when he arrives, there's no interest in him. And there they are on the road, and these people will stop and engage him, but they're essentially saying, you need to stop and wait for me to catch up. Jesus is saying, I'm going to keep going. I mean, both of these are on the road.
Yeah.
When you get to verse 10, chapter 10,
Mhm.
He's got a group of people with him.
Mhm.
It seems like he's stopped in a town,
Mhm.
and these people have been with him, and he says, you go here, you go there, you go there, and he goes on down the line through the 72 or the 70.
Mhm.
And
I see. So these are like observations on the road.
Yeah.
You got total rejection from the Samaritans, or from this one city. He got, even in Israel, one may say, well, we can't really assume that. But then he had to rebuke others, or at least challenge others who made a verbal commitment, but it wasn't enough to get them off their tail. I don't know. So is that a fair way of putting it? We've got, at least there's one town as an illustration of total rejection. And then you've got some who've got some hurdles that they're going to follow him.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Is that better than that?
Yeah, now for the last clause you got there, reinforcing his case for his messianic identity. We're saying that's the case because if he's Messiah, then it really is all or nothing.
Yeah.
Is that the idea?
Yep.
And we've got that question still lingering in the background. Is this section really is it apologetic? Are we really, is that the bottom line here? Is Luke writing an apologetic for his messianic identity? Or is he explaining in this travel narrative what actually happened?
Yeah, I would get the sense that people haven't come to terms with who he is.
Mhm.
So we're good with that there?
Yeah, well, what John just said, Steve, is this, are we there yet? And here's why I say this. Maybe these two fit more closely together than to have in a unit, 51 through 62, coming to terms with who Jesus is as he makes his way on the road. Something like that, because we have total rejection, and we have yet a challenge to be made for those who even who would follow. And then I don't know if we're there yet, but in the next section, we have 70, is it 70 or
Majority text at 70.
70? We have 70 who actually do follow him. So
I did a lengthy paper on Byzantine shorter readings for Wallace, and I included this as a Byzantine shorter reading. He said 70 has significance as a number. He said, in one sense, 70 is shorter than 72, but in another sense, it's a substitution. So, so he wouldn't accept it as a shorter reading,
I see.
but as a substitution.
I see. And I take it you weren't convinced of his perspective.
No.
No, we're text first, folks, right? We're followers of the majority text, wherever it might lead us. Is that a fair way of putting it?
Yep. I thought for a while about doing a dissertation under him on the Byzantine shorter readings.
Oh, you thought about doing that?
Yep. Yeah, the locus of that dissertation would have been Matthew 24:36.
I don't know that.
Of that day and that hour, no one knows.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
And the majority text does not have the words neither the Son.
All right.
So it's been argued as a theologically motivated change in Matthew.
Uh-huh.
But of all the manuscripts that I've been able to find for Mark 13:32, the parallel, I only found 2 manuscripts that didn't include the phrase. So the majority text scribes didn't have a problem with it in Mark. So how can we attribute it as a theologically motivated
I see.
omission in Matthew?
Matthew. Yeah, wow.
So is the first one there, John, Jesus rebuked the 2 disciples for not knowing his mission?
Or shall we say misconstruing his mission?
Uh-huh, good.
So that's one of the 2 things of following him, is you better know what his mission is.
Or how about this? Misconstruing the mission of his first advent, right? Misconstruing the mission of his first advent. You know, already my earlier suggestion about an inclusio has faded into the background here. I can see how maybe the writer wanted to keep tabs on what he was saying, but here the emphasis is not the inclusio. Here, this fits into the point. Literarily, it fits under the heading that we have here. It's an integral part of that. The inclusio may be a crutch for the writer, but you have to deny the meaning of the passage here, Luke's meaning, in order to make it force fit it into an inclusio. At least it seems to me that way.
I think the point there for 10:1 through 16 is good. I would put a comma after kingdom of God. It's your first green point. Which under the assumption that these 3 people that Jesus addressed at the end of chapter 9 didn't end up following Jesus. 10:1 through 16 serves as the antithesis to that. Because those 3 people that we're questioning weren't willing to go out with nothing and rely on God's provision.
Let me throw a question at us at this point. Very often, it seems to me that when Jesus gives a rebuke, the disciples accept the rebuke and take note. Example is the blind. Let's see here. Let's see here. It's the blind man. Is it in Luke or Matthew? Excuse me. They can, let's see here. The two blind men. This is the one in Matthew, and I'm going to have to try to remember where it is. The two disciples come to Jesus, and they say, "Will we sit on your right hand or on your left?" And it demonstrates their blindness. Then what follows is two blind men who ask for mercy, and then they follow in the way. Remember that? Let's see, where is it?
Matthew 20,
What is it? Matthew 20?
starting at verse 20.
Right. Starting at verse 20, greatness is serving. And the disciples demonstrate their blindness. And it's two men asking for priority in the kingdom, and they get a no answer. Then you have two blind men asking for mercy, and their request is answered affirmatively. And Jesus had compassion and touched their eyes, and immediately their eyes received sight, and they followed him. Now, maybe this is making too much of it, but I think at that time we went through this. The fact that there are two men with a request that's answered either negatively or affirmatively, we thought was intentional on Matthew's part. He was trying to contrast the two men who received what they asked for from the two men who were denied what they asked for. And they apparently continued following. They apparently learned the lesson. The two disciples, the brothers.
Yeah.
So on that basis, at least sometimes they do accept the rebuke. They do accept the rebuke and follow. Now, maybe that's not a pattern, but the disciples kept on following through all the rebukes they got all the way to the end. I mean, sometimes they were terrible rebukes. And granted, they did not understand the cross, and so they failed that test. But I'm wondering if many of these little rebuke sections aren't to say that the disciples did learn that lesson on their way to the next lesson, because they continued following. They didn't turn back. Like in John 6, where are you also going to go away? Well, where else are we going to go? They continued. They're remarkable in that they continued.
Sure. Yeah. Well, my statement was addressing what the text doesn't answer.
Right.
Which is, how did the people that were rebuked in 957 through 62 respond.
Yes, yes, yeah, you said it hypothetically, it's impossible to know. But they could very well be part of the 70.
Oh, yes, and so when I said, under the assumption that the 70 do not include those, it's a
Yeah.
direct antithesis.
Right,
It's, although I would assume that the 70 were selected out of ones that had been following for a period of time. I wouldn't imagine that he turned around a day or two after
Yeah,
these
that's good.
three decided that they were going to follow him and say, okay, I'm going to turn you loose.
That's a great point. Okay, so now hear and heed. We're carrying that over, Steve, aren't we, from someplace earlier?
Yes.
Where are we getting that?
Let's see.
Oh, I see it, I think. It's back in the parable of the sower. Yep. Uh-huh.
I just happened to notice something here. My recollection of it was that it was like what we have in Matthew of every city throughout Israel. But in 10:1, he sent them 2 by 2 before his face into every city and place where he himself was about to go. And that then ties with what was going on in 952. He sent messengers before his face, and as they went, they entered a village of the Samaritans to prepare for him. So it's a repetition of that he had done, but now instead of it being presumably out of the 12 that are doing it, it is out of 70 more that he sends before him, but then he comes to the town. So I had known that he sent messengers ahead in 952, but I didn't see that he did that also with the 70.
The hearing and heeding, Steve, was back in the parable of the sower.
That a lot of times. I'm looking for a list. Hey, it was in 8:18.
Yeah, it started out in 8:8. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. And then in the parable, verse 13, they hear. And then 14, when they have heard. And then 15, having heard, keep it. Right?
Yep.
So, and then he says, verse 18, take heed how you hear. Whoever has, So I think that was where we started off with this.
Yep, and then I think there's 21 too, is it? Yeah, 21 is hear and do it. My mother and my brothers are those who hear and do it.
Uh-huh, yeah.
So hear and heed.
Okay.
Maybe the 10:1 through 16, instead of saying Jesus commissioned them to rely only on, but they commissioned 70 additional disciples to preach the kingdom of God who relied only on God's provision and protection, because they did it, right? They went and did it.
Well, we don't know that until we get to 17.
Okay. And we say that there, so right?
Right. Uh-huh. Oh, verse 24, notice. Providence King. Well, that's not, no, I take that back. That's not really on the same thing. Okay, so 17 through 21. Sixteen through
Now, was it earlier that on 17, they come back and say, even the demons are subject to your name? Was that earlier or after that the disciples can't cast the demons out?
it's after. Yeah, that was the previous
Oh, that
Yeah.
statement is in 10:17, but
yeah, they couldn't cast him out at the end of the previous booklet. Verse 40 of chapter 9.
I mean, it's like this 70 is doing things that the 12 have not been able to do unless they're included. I mean, this is 70 plus the 12, right? Didn't we say that earlier?
Well, he says 10:1 appointed 70 others also. So this is in addition, I think. Does that make sense, John?
Yeah, yeah.
An additional, so we got a total of 82. That might be a textual explanation. Well, maybe not. Maybe the scribe took his pencil out of the margin or somewhere and see, so 70 plus 12 makes 82. And he started to write 70, but he said, for good measure, let's put a 2 on it, since I'm not sure whether it's 70 or 82. I don't know. That's
Well,
far-fetched.
72 is a number divisible by 12.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah, verse 17 contrasts with verse 40 of chapter 9. And this would be an illustration of the point that I tried to make a couple minutes ago. Well, on their, chapter 9, previous booklet, they're not able, and in the new booklet,
They do.
they do. So we've made progress here. They must have taken the lesson to heart, although it does say,
This kind.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he said back in that earlier pericope, this kind cannot be cast out except.
Right, that's true. Mhm. I wonder if the unit starts in verse 1 and goes to 24. There's no break at, not much of a break. He sends them and they come back with the report. Is that a separate point, or isn't this all saying they're successful now? I'm not sure. The way we have it, Steve, we have 3 units, which I'm always rooting for, but I think maybe let's see, 25, the Good Samaritan, okay. What's this Mary for hearing? Verse 21 says, in that hour, Jesus rejoiced. It looks like this is all one event.
Well, is 23 separated? It says he turned to his disciples privately. Is that 12 disciples? Or group of committed disciples?
I
He
think-
made similar statements in the explanation of the parables section in Matthew 13, when the 12 asked him what the parables meant. And so, and we get indication in Mark that they went actually into a building. Okay, take this.
I think my first guess, Steve, is that it's part of the same unit, larger unit, because it's all dialogue. Jesus,
But it says, then he turned to his disciples and said privately.
yeah, that's unique, but I think personally, I just think it still goes in the same unit. It's like he narrows it down. I think it probably is the 12. Back in 9:40, it says, I implored your disciples to cast the demon out. And that, I think the disciples are still talking about the 12. So he has a special message for them. But I still think it goes in the larger unit. The common theme is, I saw something and yeah. The common theme in the whole thing is the story of the 70. And then verses 23 to 24 are like a footnote.
So you think 10 through 24 is 1 through 24?
I think so, Steve.
10:25 through is another group.
Well, 10:25 all the way to 42. We've got a bad example. We've got the rich young ruler. And then we've got the good example, Mary, contrasted with Martha.
This is the lawyer, not the rich young ruler here, though.
Oh, is it?
The rich ruler's.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, this is the.
So this is through 10:24, right?
Yeah, it goes to 10:24. That would be my take. I mean, we can run that by John just to be sure.
So this is 25.
And then your first point under that, the disciples were blessed. that just gets moved up under. It would be part B of your previous point.
Okay, what's part A?
Part A, let's see what, part A is going to go above that, and it'll be, the heading will be something like the success of the mission of the 70, something like that. That won't be part A, Steve. That's going to be your overall heading. Jesus Commission
Oh, okay. And then that'll be, this first part will be,
the commission. Yeah, that'll be the
number,
that'll be your, okay, yeah. And then your Jesus Commission is going to be your point A. And just tab that middle. You should just be able to tab there, Steve. There you go. We fiddled with it, John, while you were gone.
Yes, Lon, in case I had mentioned, we have an insert that's going into our fireplace. We haven't been able to use the fireplace. It had some problems with the mortar and so on and so forth, and an insert will make it so that we get really efficient heat out of it.
Oh, great. And you'll feel more at home in Tennessee by burning a wood fire.
Absolutely.
You're out in the country there. Are you in the country, or are you near a town? Are you in town?
We are in the country.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah, we have an acre.
Oh, that's great.
And I have a John Deere to mow it.
Hey.
Since my parents were a John Deere dealer, I knew that if I got any other brand, that I'd have some people that would be ribbing me.
did you get snow when Nashville got snow, John?
We got a dusting.
Okay.
Our weather will be a lot different than theirs because we're in the foothills of the Appalachians, and west of us is the Cumberland Plateau. And so it has a tendency to push the severe weather northward before it gets to us.
So it's something like we have with the coming west. Yours is going east.
Yeah. Yeah, Nashville got a whole lot more snow than we did. I've got to close that door.
Yeah. Now, how was the success realized? I think because they got a clearer vision. John, here's my proposal. How were they successful when they weren't so earlier? Well, their vision was clarified. They got the message, including the two close disciples were on the Mount of the Transfiguration, so they can't be blamed for not casting out the demons. But when they come down from the mountain, you'd think, well, hey, we've seen the Lord. We've seen the kingdom. We should do just as well as anybody else. I mean, we must have the right attitude, but they don't. So they want to call down fire, but maybe they got the message, and maybe these other three, either they didn't follow or they did, but at least the disciples got the message.
Well, let me build on that. I think you're on the right track.
Mhm.
The John and James evidence that they thought, well, the 12 is where all the action is. When they said, we didn't, we forbade that man because he wasn't following us. And the question is us James and John, or James, John as followers of Jesus? But Jesus takes 70 that were, shall we say, hangers on along with the 12,
Mhm.
and does something pretty spectacular through them that the 9 who weren't on the mountain weren't able to do.
Uh-huh.
So it ends up being a further commentary beyond the point that you made. I thought your point was excellent, but I think it can be carried even further.
Yeah. I think the rest of this is pretty good.
For 1038 through 42, on the second line, you could replace the thing with that and remove the comma preceding it.
First time I've noticed that verse 38, that apparently the house belonged to Martha. She also had a sister called Mary, but Mary isn't cited as a homeowner here.
Well, uh, if I were talking about my son George, when he lived in our home, it's that he invited his friend into his house. It can be used fairly generically. I do suspect that the two sisters might have been spinsters or widowed, but it can have a lesser sense than ownership.
That's true.
I wouldn't be at all surprised if it is, but it could be a lesser sense.
I grew up next door to two elderly women and 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 a bachelor. They were all two of them died while I was still living at home, but they were all in their probably 70s. For most of the time that I was growing up, they were in their 60s, probably it's 65 to 75 or 80. So never thought of the connection. They all seem to be able to get along, at least outwardly.
You think you're the when the 70 come back, they're all having this kind of party. Jesus is kind of he's rejoicing. Yeah, in verse 21, it says, in that hour, Jesus rejoiced in the spirit. That these guys got it, that it's actually, he's not having to rebuke them for something. But then he turns around in verse 23 and sees his inner circle going, we haven't rejoiced with him like this for a long time. And he says they're seeing things that not only these 70 haven't seen, but prophets and kings. And they just need to understand that these rebukes are to keep them on the right track. And then he gives them the parable of the Good Samaritan, so they know.
Well, that's in response to the lawyer's question.
Oh, that's right. That's right. But maybe he just, up to that point, he said, you're getting something that I know it doesn't feel like rejoice right now, but nobody else has seen it.
Now in Matthew, that is he says that to them in the parable of the sower.
Yeah, which this is a repeated event.
Right. In Matthew, it was 13:16. Many prophets and righteous men, here it's prophets and kings. Now, does he actually say that back in chapter 8?
No, the explanation of the purpose of parables was only given in Matthew. Which is where that shows up.
Right. Yeah.
So-called Sondergut.
Sondergut?
Yeah.
What language is that?
Well,
German?
Besonders in German. Anyways, haven't actually looked up the full derivation of it, but that's the term that is applied by synoptic scholars to things that only appear in one synoptic.
Oh, I see. Sondergut.
Other somethings. Other good things or something like that.
So maybe those two, the lawyer and Martha are both on the wrong track. He's trying to let them know how to get back on the right track.
Okay, Sondergut comes from sondern, means to separate. Sondergut is that material which is separated out, i.e. that is unique to Matthew or Luke.
Sonder, is that spelled Sonder or Ander?
Oh,
Yeah, Sonder. It's in John 3:16, where it means, let's see, Sondern, I think it is. It's, but have everlasting life. Is that right? I think it's, but separately. Das, here. Yeah, it's, I think it's translated there, but I could be wrong. I think. So down to here. Well, Steve, as for the rich young ruler, he needs to learn to hear and heed the Messiah, who is the good Samaritan. As for Martha, she needs to hear and heed the Messiah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
this is a lawyer, not the.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, do we have it as the Good Samaritan?
He's later. He's in the Inclusio in like chapter 18 or something.
Yeah.
So they're both off track. One's farther off track than the other one, right? It's kind of like when the disciples were off track earlier, wanting to bring down lightning. They're off track.
Yeah, I guess why they were called the sons of thunder.
Yeah.
And isn't it something, the lesson that John learned, since he's the one in the New Testament that emphasizes love?
Yeah. Yeah, he seemed to learn from the rebuke. Well, it doesn't seem like then 10:25 through 42 should be Jesus' blessings were given to those hearing and heeding. Because these are both rebukes.
Well, there is the commendation of Mary that he gives in the process of rebuking Martha.
Maybe I should put Jesus blesses those hearing and heeding.
Isn't what's going on with Martha a bit like what was going on with James and John? They were focused on what others were doing.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
that's a distraction.
That's right, John. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's what the rebuke is. Do your own program.
Yeah, it's take your own log out first.
So that's the inclusio. Right? That's how
Could be.
these units started out.
Yep.
And
That makes sense, John, because the lawyer has no concern for others.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess in a sense you need to have concern for others, but not what they're doing for the Lord. It's that you have to have compassion on them. Where Martha is concerned that the sister's not helping her.
And it is a similar concept, although expressed in different words. Mary chose the good thing, and Jesus said, he who is not against us is on our side or is for us. That's a good thing.
Right.
It doesn't use the same, you know how they say that Christianity is the only army that shoots its own wounded?
mhm.
Yeah, the church has not done a very good job of this.
Has Dick said where he's going after Second Timothy? He
didn't-
was hinting at John.
Yeah, he didn't say yet. Eunice just resigned as the children's director, so he's got
Yeah, Yeah.
his mind on that.
yeah.
So
That can be a thankless job.
yeah. I mean, you see, I mean, it's what the Israelites do to Moses all the time. I mean, and they go, wow, those guys were really bad. Well, the church does the same thing to every pastor today.
Yep.
Well, I think this is good here, John. I think, the idea that being maybe rebukes those distracted by others instead of serving them. Or instead of loving them. I'll put it in green so we have, or red so we have it for next week, but. I guess the real bottom line here is no one would be on the right track for discipleship if Jesus didn't do all this teaching. Because
Yep.
we'd all be doing these things all the time in the flesh.
Yep.
That's why we have to have the book of Luke. Right? I mean, the whole thing is to start out with green recruits and to bring them into a fighting army. Right? I mean,
I think make them SEAL team members.
Sure. For your point in red, before the closing quote, put a comma. Hearing and heeding, comma.
and then it would be confirming, not confirms, confirming.
In the second line near the
second
end.
line, same thing, right below your cursor.
Below my cursor?
Up, go
Right,
up.
right below your cursor. Hearing
It's
and heeding.
blinking, where it's blinking.
Yeah, where it's blinking.
For 10:25 to 42. Okay, your second red line.
Oh,
Confirming, confirming.
sorry, I couldn't find it. I was looking in the wrong line.
Well, it's been a good session.
Yes,
Yes, yeah.
thank you very much. I appreciate it. And we'll see you next Monday.
See you
Yep.
then. See you then.
And I won't see you on Thursday.
That's right.
All right.
Have fun at the stock show or whatever, rodeo or.
Stock show, yeah.
Okay, well, take care.